Hey everyone, Stefan Burns here with breaking news. We have just had a magnitude 7 earthquake in the Tonga region. This is along a very, very large, powerful subduction zone. And we see that there was a magnitude 6.1 aftershock that occurred just a little bit under 3 hours later. Both of these earthquakes occurring right next to the Tonga volcano, where we had that incredible eruption in 2022. This was January 12th and 15th. And so we are seeing increased seismic activity right next to the largest volcanic eruption yet in the 21st century. And this is all following on top of already a whole bunch of high magnitude earthquakes that we've had this year, or just in the past week, not even the past week. So here we have a magnitude 6.7 that occurred in New Zealand. This was the 25th of March, so just about 5 days ago. And that kind of started the whole sequence. And then, as all of you know, I'm sure watching the channel, yesterday, or rather 2 days ago, on March 28th, we had a magnitude 7.7 and also a magnitude 6.4 earthquake sequence in Myanmar, Burma. This also extended into Thailand, because in general, the larger the fault, the more the bigger the earthquake, the longer the fault that ruptures. And so this extended all the way down, and there was severe shaking also in Bangkok. A lot of damage and devastation from that in terms of property and human life, unfortunately. And then we also, on the 28th too, had this double earthquake sequence here. I have to really zoom in so you see them differently. But a magnitude 6.1 first, and then a 6.6 afterwards. This being on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge Spreading Center. Very bizarre to see a magnitude 6.6 on that. And so we're just seeing this huge increase in high magnitude earthquakes over the past few days. Tonga now, with these two earthquakes here being the latest, and solar activity has been ramping up. We just had that giant coronal hole sweep by, the geomagnetic storm from that. Then we had that incredible coronal mass ejection that launched on the 28th as well. We've had some solar flares since then. And all this is just kind of speaking to a couple dreams that I had late last year. So I've had precognition dreams before. A precognition dream is a dream that comes true. And I'm not talking about a precognition dream where it's just like, I walked to the grocery store or something, and then 2 days later I walked to the grocery store. Like, these were very detailed and kind of bizarre dreams that ended up actually reflecting and manifesting into reality. And so I have two dreams here, one from August 23rd and one from December 6th of 2024 that I'm going to read you after the main presentation, because I feel like they are really speaking to this moment in time. I don't know, but it's just, I've talked about this before on the channel, my dreams and things, and so we'll get into that as well, because some of you may find that very, very, very interesting. So thank you for the super thanks, both of you. And so yeah, let us look at our USGS. Well, first off, I want to show you this. I want to show you this quake stats number. This shows you this increasing seismic energy, this seismic burst that's effectively occurring globally right now. And so there's two things to look at here with this data. First and foremost, we have the number of earthquakes, just the sheer number of earthquakes. And we see that we had just a higher number of earthquakes here back around the beginning of February. And the strongest of that sequence being a magnitude 7.6. That was just a little bit southwest of the Cayman Islands. You see that spike there. What's that spike showing? That's showing the combined seismic energy. And so this is what I really want to show you. Look at this chart overall, and specifically the combined seismic energy. We see that this is the 90-day chart. We see that here, very beginning of January, we had a magnitude 7.1, and that just bumped up the combined seismic energy overall, because in general, the higher magnitude earthquakes will be the dominant energy release, because it scales non-linearly. So you get a magnitude 7 earthquake, that number is going to go up dramatically. We see it here. It's going from gigawatt hours all the way up to terawatt hours. Then we see here also, I believe that's the 15th of January or right near there, another spike. But in general, you see kind of like this baseline. We see how this spiked up there with the 7.6 Cayman Islands. That's a big earthquake. But even with this elevation of earthquakes, that number didn't really budge that much, right? So we're looking at the combined seismic energy. Now look over here though. Like we have one spike, two spike, three. They're kind of just like random up, right back down. But look how like these waves of energy are coming in there just over the past about week or so. I mean, you maybe even be able to extend it back to like early March with this wave right there. But really, we get this one, and then we get that one, and then we go up. That is that 7.7 and also that 6.4 and the 6.6 and the 6.0 that all occurred on the 28th. That is the 28th of March. And now we see our number has gone back up because of this magnitude 7 earthquake with Tonga. So this is the global seismic burst that I am referencing in the thumbnail of this video. And you see that just that in general, that wave of increased seismic energy coming in. Now you may be asking yourself, what caused that? Like what the heck could cause an increase of energy like that? And well, let me show you. We have a coronal hole that was on the sun. I've been talking about this a lot, and there's a connection between coronal holes and earthquakes, and lo and behold, that's probably what was the main cause of this increase in earthquakes. Because we saw the magnitude 7.7 and all the earthquakes that occurred on the 28th, and we saw today's earthquake on the 30th. We saw all that happen after this coronal hole high-speed stream impacted the Earth and gave us that G2 geomagnetic storm. And more than that as well, it also just changed the solar wind in very unusual ways. It dropped the density down tremendously below 1 or even 0.5 particles per cubic centimeter. Normally it's like 5 or 10 or 20. So a dramatic reduction in the actual density of the solar wind, even like below 0.1 particles per cubic centimeter at times that we measured via satellites out in space. And so this coronal hole is, at least in my mind, certainly the reason why we've had this increase in earthquakes. There is research on that. I have a research paper, DOI, in the video description that you can read. It's called like the sun as a significant agent in earthquakes. But right now, it's just really strong correlations, but you can't really get more causative than the sun. That's the thing. Like the sun is the dominant energy source on our solar system, 99.86% of the mass. Without the sun, the Earth would be a cold, barren, lifeless place. And so you can't really get more causative than the sun. That's the thing. So this is almost certainly the agent that caused this increase of earthquakes through how it's altering A, energy loading into the Earth, and then B, just the solar wind and kind of the magnetosphere dynamics. That magnetic field connects the entire globe together simultaneously, energetically, originates in the core, goes all the way out to space. And this works with our magnetic field very directly because a coronal hole is an area where the magnetic field is open. It doesn't loop back in like it does the sunspots. Like these sunspots here, they all form these like loops of magnetic fields. Sometimes they're like really close together. You can even see it here. See how like these plasma filaments are kind of like, see that? That's like a magnetic field line right there. So the coronal hole though, you don't see that there. It's just kind of opening out into space and flows out into interplanetary space. So it's working directly with our magnetic field. So that could very well explain the seismic burst. And in fact, it's this coronal hole that makes me think that perhaps one of my dreams was a precognition dream. And I'll explain that after our main presentation for those of you who want to explore into that. So thankfully, there was no tsunami from this. We have our tsunami warning here from the Australian government, Bureau of Meteorology, and no tsunami risk for Australia, even though this earthquake, we see it here, occurred north of New Zealand. So in general, like right about there on the map. So you could think that there would be a tsunami risk, but thankfully with this one, they say there's no tsunami risk. They actually have their bulletin right here. We can read that. And undersea earthquake of magnitude 7.1 That's what they say. 7.1 USGS has as a magnitude 7. Has occurred today near the Tonga Islands. No tsunami threat to Australian mainland islands or territories. And that's all they say. So, yeah, according to the Australian government, there is no risk of tsunamis from this earthquake, which is a very good thing. Now, if we want to look at our solar activity really quick, I want to show you this. And actually, I can go right here to this guy. Here we have just a quick overview of our solar activity. And I can even do this. Look at that. And we see that we've had these flares now starting to pop off. That is that 1.1 X-class flare, the huge coronal mass ejection that sent off. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But now you'll see our proton flux is starting to go up. And so it looks like there's just a little bit of a wave pushing and accelerating protons heading towards the Earth right now at this moment in time. So we can specifically go to our proton flux now. That is now causing there to be greater energization of the global electric circuit. We're measuring these protons. We're measuring these protons at 5.6 Earth radii in the outer radiation belt, which is electron dominant. So when you get protons increasing in flux, basically in density, in the outer radiation belt, they are going to move down deeper and deeper into the Earth geophysical system, which means eventually they'll reach the inner radiation belt, and then they'll also will reach the ionosphere and even into the atmosphere. All that energy eventually gets down. You know, it gets deposited into different layers. So you don't get all of it going into the crust, but you get some of it going into the crust eventually. This energy, some of that will go into the crust, some will go into the mantle, some probably even makes it to the core through being guided along the magnetic field, which originates, again, in the core. So it's not at the warning threshold, but if we go here, we do see that it's up about 5x for greater than 10 mega electron volt protons. So our red line is the only one that's really moving significantly. Normal values are 0.2 on terms of our flux here. Right now it's just about 1. So about a 5x increase in protons, but during a big storm, we'll see like a 500x increase sometimes. Like it can get really gnarly. So this isn't anything too concerning yet. It's just, you know, we get this, but it is a sign that there's a little bit of a wave of energy coming in. And this is all following on the heels of an incredible coronal mass ejection that occurred on the 28th. So let's check this out. Here we have this coronal mass ejection. This is the C3. Well, actually, we have 3 different things we're looking at here. We're looking at the sun at 304 angstroms. We're looking at the C2 coronagraph and the C3 coronagraph. And so you can see this coronal mass ejection launch all the way from the sun. Check that out. Out into space. This was off to the east solar coordinate system. And it does look like there's a little bit of a shock wave just because of how big it is, but most of it's going there. We actually may get a little bit of a shock today, but no one's expecting this to be a big shock here on Earth, and nor is it expected to trigger a geomagnetic storm. At most, I think it would do a G1, but I don't even think it's going to trigger a G1 storm. But it does look like there's a little just shock component with this, and evidence for that is that proton flux that's coming in, being accelerated at the advance of that shock wave. This was about 2,000 kilometers per second. So this is a very fast coronal mass ejection. And look at the density on that. I mean, it's insane. Some of the density of the plasma is really insane. If that had hit Earth, we would be looking at almost certainly a G5 geomagnetic storm, like one of the biggest storms of the 21st century, if that had hit us. And perhaps the biggest of solar cycle 25, perhaps bigger than the storm back in May of 2024, the Mother's Day storm or the Gannon storm, depending on which name you use. So yeah, that is something that just happened on the sun, and it relates also to the dreams, like the dreams I'm going to share. So that's why I'm laying this all out so you can see this, because the dream involves earthquakes and solar activity happening simultaneously. And we're seeing this seismic burst globally, and we're seeing insane solar activity. This is one of the biggest coronal mass ejections in decades and decades. So like there's a certain level that can be reached, and not many of them have, and this one has. So definitely in the top probably 100 coronal mass ejections since the Carrington event. But I think that number is actually quite a bit lower. This is a big boy right there. He's all grown up. So we can look also, this is interesting, we can look at how these seismic waves propagated across the United States. Let's check that out. Here we have our ground motion visualization for the Tonga earthquake, and they're still updating the product, so I don't have the one yet for Asia, like Eurasia, but we see these waves rolling through the seismic networks that we have here in North America. We have Alaska, we have the continental, even some in Mexico and throughout the Caribbean. And so you see these surface waves just rolling through. And so this shows you that once you have a high enough magnitude earthquake, like a magnitude 7, those waves get really strong. I mean, there's a global seismic network, and anything that's over a magnitude 5 gets picked up by the global seismic network. Typically, even over a magnitude 4 can be picked up globally by seismometers. But once you get to a magnitude 7, I mean, the energy differential on that, let me type it in really quick. We'll do a magnitude 5 versus a magnitude 7 earthquake, okay? And we'll start with the 5. Magnitude 5 earthquake is equivalent to 477 sticks of TNT. That's what we'll use, or we can use basically 2 million megajoules of energy, okay? Now we'll go to magnitude 7, which is what just happened. This is only 7.1, it's 7.1, something like that. Magnitude 7 earthquake is 2 billion megajoules of energy. So you see how that scales, right? It scales really quickly, and it's about 477,000 sticks of TNT. So you have it go up 10x each time. From a 5, you have 477 sticks of TNT. To a 6, it's going to be 4,000. Or sorry, 6 is 15,000, and then a 7 is 477,000 sticks of TNT. So you go up 2 orders of magnitude, you scale up 100 times. So the energy from that 7.1 or magnitude 7, it's really broadcasting out globally, and that's following on the heels of the seismic burst that we had on the 28th, and then we also had the 6.7 earthquake in New Zealand on the 25th. And so all this lining up, you have the coronal hole, you have the partial solar eclipse. We also just had that. Let us not forget about our partial solar eclipse. That also is a factor as it relates to earthquakes, and specifically high magnitude earthquakes. So we can look at that right here. Here we have our partial solar eclipse that occurred. This was yesterday, so this is on the 29th. And in general, you have stronger gravitational forces when the moon is aligned with either the sun or behind the earth as a full moon. So a new moon or a full moon. And when it's exactly on the ecliptic plane, like we get with eclipses, that gravitational vector is even stronger because the moon is not at an inclination, which can be quite up there. So we see the shadow from the moon pass over the earth. That is that partial solar eclipse that then went into the Arctic and over to Siberia. But we have this temporal clustering of earthquakes. We have all the earthquakes on the 28th, then we have this partial solar eclipse, and then just the day after, when the moon is still effectively in that new moon position, right? A new moon's like kind of like a 2-3 day long period, just like a full moon is like a 2-3 day long period. There is a moment where it's exact, but in general, there's a little bit of room on each side where you look at the moon and you're like, yeah, it's a full moon, right? So it's the same with the new moon. It's aligned with the sun. That is still the case today. And we have a magnitude 7 earthquake now in Tonga. So another high power earthquake occurring, really showing that there's this temporal clustering happening. And we also are having solar activity. So let's put this on really quick. And yeah, that paused at the perfect point right there. Holy cow. It's loading right now. So This is like for the past 3 days, and we see that our active regions are rotating in, whereas we had this coronal hole. It didn't have much activity directly next to it. That was that big coronal mass ejection, the 1.1x flare. But now that it's moving out, these guys are coming in and they're showing some activity. This guy as well. Actually, may have to check the coronagraph. That could be something headed our way, perhaps. But we have now a lot of solar flares coming, and we've been in a little bit of like a quiet period in terms of solar flares. We've had a lot of other stuff. We've had like plasma filaments launch. We've had this coronal hole. We've had other coronal holes. For the month of March, we haven't had much solar flares until basically 2 days ago on the 28th. Until effectively the 28th, solar flare activity has been very low, and now that's ramping up too. So it's just a lot happening right now, and it's just kind of all like resonating with some dreams that I had. So I'll share those in just a moment. I hope they're not prophetic. I hope they're not precognition dreams, but I've had those precognition dreams before. So here we have our HP indices and our KP index as well. And so we see the geomagnetic activity that we've had over the past 10 days. I can step over here. And so we see that we kind of had multiple pulses of geomagnetic activity. This first one there, G1 storm. This is that G2 storm. Now we've kind of faded out. And so geomagnetic volatility is coming to a close. But of course, there's multiple ways for energy to express itself on the planet. So we have all these earthquakes that are occurring. People are also, let me type this in. People are also mentioning the Schumann resonances, and they're a little confused by this burst that we have right here. And so here we have our Schumann resonances as measured out of Tomsk, Russia. And this is the most recent, really, kind of nicely symmetrical looking increase in energy out of the, in the vertical electric field. We're measuring this from 0 to 40 hertz. And this is in UTC +7 going back 3 days. We're looking at this data across 3 days now. We see our Schumann resonances, mode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then even 6. This is about 7.8 hertz on average, 14 hertz, 20 hertz, 25, 26 hertz, 33, 39, 45, beyond. This only goes to 40 hertz though. So people are wondering if this is like, what the heck is this? Well, let's find out. We can check out our weather for Tomsk, Russia. Let's do this live, okay? We're doing it live because what you see on a spectrogram for Schumann resonances is not only global but local. The Schumann resonances are a global phenomenon, but the background electric field or the background magnetic field can be influenced by local factors like a thunderstorm or a rain cloud, or even if it's just cloudy outside. You can get increases in energy that look like this, even if just the wire, the antenna that they're measuring this on is like shaking because the wind is blowing. You can get artificial noise put into the spectrogram, and some people point at it like, oh my God, we're ascending to a new level of consciousness. It's like, no, they had like windy gust in Tomsk, Russia. So let us look at the weather in Tomsk and see what it is. And we'll be able to do this real time. Maybe it's not the weather. Maybe it is something cool. But it is snowing right now. Yeah, so we have snow in Tomsk, and you get that sort of response from snow. So that's not really all that surprising. And then also there were afternoon showers too. So there was rain. So yeah, rain, drizzle, and is that snow? Yeah, Tuesday evening snow. So that is almost certainly, and yeah, what it says right here? Mixed rain and snow. There we go. So that explains this. They had rain earlier, and then we're likely actually going to see kind of a continuation of an energy form like that over the next few days, or over the next few hours rather, from the rain and snow that they have coming in. This is a local atmospheric phenomenon. Actually, thunderstorms really show you this nice teardrop shape. You'll see them all the time in the summer, and we're getting closer to summer now. They show up like that. So nothing unusual there. Though we have been seeing some weird stuff with the Schumann resonances just lately. Actually, we've been seeing it out of Italy. This is the more kind of weird thing, I would say. but it doesn't look like it's happening right now. We've been seeing some really weird frequency patterns that they've been measuring there. But you can look here and see how at times like the overall field can just increase in power. Here we're looking at a spectrogram, vertical electric field, but this is for Italy. And we see just how like it kind of, you see how it's lower power here, intensity, and then green is higher intensity. It's increasing intensity as you go on through time. This is like a 4-hour stretch right there, right? You can have things like that. That happens every day in your local area when the sun is lighting up the ionosphere and just in general energizing your part of the globe. But it can also happen in a more global sense at times too. We do see that. So there is something to this. But this is, you know, I don't know exactly why there's this 4-hour subtle kind of increase there. It's not worth exploring because we see things like that all the time. And so I just want to go back to our earthquakes and just talk a little bit more about how it's kind of unusual what we're seeing right now, this global earthquake burst, I'm calling it. Because we can go to our latest earthquakes. This is set for January 1st of this year, okay? So we're looking at all the high magnitude earthquakes that have occurred in 2025, and this is set for magnitude 6 and greater, okay? Magnitude 5 earthquakes are important too, but it would just get a little bit too unruly to look at this data set on like live for you all if it had magnitude 5 earthquakes. So we're sticking with magnitude, the big boys, magnitude 6 plus, okay? We have this set for newest first. Here's our magnitude 6.1 aftershock in Tonga, right there. Here's our magnitude 7 earthquake in Tonga today, right there. And then we have our 6.6 on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, 6.7 aftershock in Burma, the 7.7 in Burma, and then the 6.1 on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge as well. These are a pair. We're only back to the 28th of March now. And you'll notice, look at the size of our little scroll bar there, right? It's not that big. This just takes us to the 28th, okay? Now we go to the 25th. Here's our 6.7 out of New Zealand. We go down, here's a 6.2 with Alaska on the 21st, and then also a 6.5 in Panama. They upgraded that one. Originally they called that a 6.2, now it's a 6.5. That takes us now to the 21st of March. So just a little bit more than a week ago, we have this entire part of the list there showing up. Then we go down further, 6.2 in Panama. Okay, so it looks like there was two actually, 6.5 and a 6.2. No, these have the exact same time, so maybe there's an issue here with the data. Either way, we're only to the 21st. Then all of a sudden we get to March 10th with the Jan Mayen earthquake that was that occurred 6.5 near a volcano, and then we get to our 7.6 there in mid-February, and now we're at the bottom of the list, right? So nearly all the high magnitude earthquakes, about half of them have occurred in just like 10 days, and the month is about 90 days in at this point. So that's temporal clustering. That's the global seismic burst that I'm talking about. Now, and I want to show you that data from Earthquake Discovery one more time. Like, this is not a 2-month trend yet, right? This is just like we see these waves coming in, first wave, second, third, and then the big wave for the 28th. We see the next one right there. Thank you for Daniel for the super thanks. So we do see this occurring. It's not a nothing trend, but it hasn't been like 2 months or something yet. But perhaps it's going to continue. That's the thing. Perhaps we're entering kind of into a new phase, because if you do look at earthquakes, typically you have a magnitude 8 earthquake every year. Typically, it's about an average. About every year you have a magnitude 8 earthquake. We haven't had a magnitude 8 earthquake in a long time. Now we got close with the 7.7 on the 28th, and we got close back in 2023 with the 7.8 earthquake in Turkey and also 7.5. But you combine those together, that still does not make a magnitude 8 earthquake. We haven't had that for like 4+ years now. So we're kind of like overdue for the big earthquakes. So even though we've been seeing this increasing amount of seismic energy release, right? Combined seismic energy release, that has been going up in a significant way as compared to what's been happening since the beginning of 2025, only isolated spikes in these other zones. In terms of like the seismic energy release, it's kind of been sequestered overall globally for a few years now. So at some point, we are going to get another magnitude 8. At some point, we'll get another magnitude 9 earthquake. When that occurs, that is the unknown. We don't know if that's tomorrow or today, or if that's like 10 years from now for a big, big earthquake. But they happen. We know they occur. But we know that we're also a little overdue to have these magnitude 8 plus earthquakes, these giant earthquakes. We're starting to get close to them, as we're seeing here. Like, this has been a wild few days there. It's been a crazy sequence, starting really with New Zealand in that 6.7, but even going back further back to 21st of March. But yeah, that is what I wanted to show you. And I don't think I have anything else really immediately to show you as it relates to this. So let me just put, I think it's this one on, not that one. Let me just put on this coronal mass ejection video, and then I'm going to share the dreams that I've had. And actually, I'm going to have to switch this over to something else too. So let me do that. Because now I want to discuss these dreams that I've had. And we'll actually zoom this forward to like right there, something like that. So let me share the first dream, okay? I've had precognition dreams. I'm not saying these are precognition or prophetic, but they are interesting. It seems that the first one has come true. So on the 23rd of August, 2024, I wrote down my dream. I write these down right when I wake up. If they're notable enough, you know, I already have like a selection filter. So if I have dreams every night, but if they're not like kind of really striking to me, I don't write them down. So what I wrote, I'll read it exactly, okay? I saw a massive sunspot on the sun that was, and I drew a picture too, so I'll show you the picture. But I saw a massive sunspot on the sun this big that looked like this. And maybe I can see that like little eagle right there? That's what I drew. I saw a sunspot that big. That's the same size, folks. And actually it looks very similar too. If you look at that, I have the head of the eagle and the wings and then the body. And this kind of forms that shape. We have the head and we have like the wings stretching out there. So I saw a massive sunspot. This is a coronal hole, but I didn't, this is a dream. I was like, is it a sunspot, a coronal hole, whatever. I saw a massive sunspot on the sun that was this big, that looked like this. And it was an eagle on top of a circle, all black. I was simply in awe, a combination of sun plus eagle energy. That's what I wrote down. And so I think that's a precognition dream because it's not a sunspot, it's a coronal hole, but you know, I just basically saw a massive black hole on the sun. Actually, a sunspot is a hole in the sun. It's a depression in the sun itself. If you see a sunspot coming over the limb and it's big enough, you will actually see how it curves into the surface of the sun. So it is literally a hole in the sun. A hole doesn't have to go all the way to the other side into China, right? You dig a hole, it's just a surface depression. A sunspot's a surface depression. Same with coronal holes. They are the same thing. So that's what I had for August the 23rd, 2024. And that was like a kind of an inspiring dream. It was just, there was no fear or anything with that dream. It was really just like, holy cow, this is crazy. Like, this is wow. I can't imagine something that big could exist. But I see the eagle and I see the phoenix in this for sure. It's not the best, but I mean, you even see kind of like perhaps like the beak, like right here, right? So precognition dream, that's up for you to determine. I won't, that's up for you to determine. Now here we have our coronal mass ejection that just occurred. Now let me read this next dream because this is where things get a little weird, okay? I'm just going to read it exactly. So, you know, keep in mind this is a dream and weird things can happen in dreams. But there shouldn't be anything embarrassing in here. So I'm at a large outdoor, well, let me see. Yeah. I'm at a large outdoor area with big trees overhead. I'm just reading this exactly right from here. with friends and friends of these friends. We're figuring out how to play this game with a ball like something from a game show. But then an earthquake strikes. This is December 6th of 2024. The ground is rumbling. Everyone is spooked, and then it's over. The pool, we have a pool there. And this is like a really nice outdoor field. It's like this really big lawn, and the hill, it's like on top of a hill too. It kind of slopes a little bit, and there's trees all along the perimeter. These really big like pine trees. It's a really beautiful, peaceful setting. Kind of has like a little bit of like a forest vibe to it. It was really nice. The pool is sloshing around. After this, I explore the area and find this massive cluster of quartz points. And when I ask whose it is, this guy says it's his and that he bought it at Home Goods. He gets a little frisky with me, which I'm surprised by, and I evade away from him. I'm not into that. And grab the crystals that fell into the pool with my feet. So now we're talking about crystals. Then a second earthquake strikes. Stronger. Eventually, I jump out of the pool and run around, and I'm pounding my fists on the ground to send a message back to Mother Earth, because she's like rumbling us and causing all this chaos. And I'm like, we are here too. I'm like pounding on the ground. Then I look up and see the huge trees swaying. So I jump under a picnic table for safety. The ground is still rumbling. Then someone says, look up to see the lights. There is a massive continuous explosion in the atmosphere, yellow and red. I'm not sure if it's nuclear or the sun itself. I think it's the sun. When I saw that, I think it was the sun. It's causing the earthquakes. See, and it's just like one of these instant knowings. When you have a dream, sometimes you just have an instant knowing. That was like, I saw this explosion in the sky, just like this, and I knew that was causing the earthquakes. Seeing that is actually scary. The earthquake eventually ends, and my friends are nowhere to be found. They all just drove off, and it's just me and one other dude looking for car keys to get out. Then I wake up. So that's the other dream too. Yeah, the picnic table was not safe. But first we had the dream about, I had the dream about seeing this massive dark spot in the shape of an eagle on the sun that was the exact same size as this coronal hole right here, as I drew it in my book. And then I had a dream about continuous earthquakes, like we were having multiple earthquakes and we were feeling them, and the ground kept rumbling stronger and stronger. And then I look up and I see this massive explosion in the sky, and it was like a ball. So I think it was the sun, but you know, in the dream, it was just like this madness, chaos. Like it was like no time to even think about what it was. But it's just like it's so hard to explain, you know, just like frightening. It was terrifying. And I mean, it's not like I woke up, it's not like this was a nightmare, but it was definitely like seeing that was like, put me into that immediate respect for forces greater than my own. You know, the force of nature, the force of the sun, the force of the universe. So it was like a terrifying respect, you could say. So those are the two dreams I had. August 23rd, I believe it was. I think that's what August 23rd, and then September or December 6th of 2024. So what does that mean? Well, the dream with the eagle sunspot, I think that came true. I think basically that's what happened with this coronal hole. And so that's another precognition dream for the book, that about 7 months in advance of this coronal hole happening, I had a dream of that. And these coronal holes, you know, they take on a variety of shapes, but this is the biggest one we've had in a long time. It's the size of it, and also the fact that it had the same shape as what I saw in my dream, lining up perfectly. And in general, this has been a super energetic time. It's not like we just had the coronal hole. Here's the thing. If we had just a coronal hole and none of this other energetic stuff, we didn't have the mega coronal mass ejection, we didn't have all the earthquakes, right? Then it wouldn't be as notable of a time. But we've had all those other things, which means it's definitely been the craziest week, and also the eclipse. It's been the craziest week of the entire year in terms of the energies on the planet. That's why 6,000 of you are watching this live stream right now. Hello and welcome to all of you. If you're new here, again, I'm your host, Stefan Burns. So that just makes this entire zone very, very notable from that perspective. And the fact that I had a dream of this coronal hole that lines up with that makes sense to me, because you often, the stronger the energy of a moment in time, the more it can kind of ripple out, right? Deja vu, things of this nature, synchronicities. Like there are some times where not much is happening. There's other times where there's a lot happening. You can have years go by and nothing happens, and then sometimes you have like decades worth of things occurring just in like a span of a few weeks. For example, like the fall of the Berlin Wall, and like 1991, the last Saturn-Neptune conjunction. There was a tremendous amount of stuff that happened politically, globally, whatever, around the world. Mount Pinatubo, I believe that was 91. So you see these things. The Quebec geomagnetic storm in 89. They had this temporal clustering to them. So the first dream, in my opinion, I mean, it's my dream, but the first dream came true. So the only question is the second dream about the earthquakes and the massive continuous explosion on what looked to be the sun. The sun or some sort of nuclear explosion. Does that come true? I don't know. I hope it doesn't. But those are the dreams. I've had precognition dreams before. I just thought I would share them. And that's up for you to determine. I'm not, again, I just think this first one came true. Precognition, I think that's fairly clear. The second one, up for you to determine. So let's do a question and answer. If you have any questions, then please ask them. Type at Stefan Burns in the chat. We'll go through a few of them. Plasma is conscious. Yeah, 99% of the universe is plasma. And 99% of the universe is plasma, and we see consciousness existing in the 1% with us and with other animals. Like, why wouldn't 99% of the universe be conscious? What makes us so special? I think it's an epidemic how so many people think that we're like the end-all be-all and that we're the only smart, intelligent life in the universe or something. It's like, no, we're probably actually like the least intelligent life in the universe. Plasma is probably a lot more conscious than we are. But that's my personal opinion. So we have some questions already coming in. Julie asks, is the solar plasma ejection going to hit any other planets? And if so, how will that affect the influence they have on us astrology-wise? That is a very interesting question. I'm glad you mentioned it. We can go into that. I'll load up solar system scope, because that coronal mass ejection, in fact, is going to slam into Jupiter. So this launched off 90 degrees from us, and right now Jupiter is 90 degrees to the Earth. And so Jupiter is going to get hit by that. When would that be? That would be probably early April. Yeah, that'll be early April. So here we have solar system scope. And let's go back to where we are now, which is the 30th of March. And we have our planetary geometry. This shows all the planets in the solar system. They're not to scale, nor are the orbits. Actually, the orbits are to scale, but the planets are not to scale. So here we see this alignment that we have right now with Mercury, Venus, and Earth. That is still active, and that still has this opposition to Neptune and Saturn. Let me turn that off. But where's Jupiter? Jupiter is right there, 90 degrees to us. And so that explosion was from the eastern limb. That is pumping out towards Jupiter right now at this moment in time. And so there's really no good framework for this in terms of astrology, in terms of, I mean, I'm probably one of the few people, if not the only person, maybe. I mean, I don't know, but I haven't heard anyone else talk about how solar activity affects the other planets in terms of like, okay, you can expect there to be stronger Jupiterian themes and energies on the day of that impact. That's kind of what I just in general practice. This is going to come in early April, and so there's just going to be an enhancement of Jupiterian energies in early April. If based on that model, which makes sense to me. Like, why not? So yeah, that's what you can expect. Or at least that's what I think. Now we have some more questions. Just have to go through this. Earthquakes less than magnitude 8 are in 4.5 years is a good thing, right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we don't want those high magnitude earthquakes from like a human perspective in terms of the destruction of things, the loss of life. So yeah, I mean, in that perspective, it's a good thing. But you know, the Earth needs to move and rumble for normal geophysical processes and everything. So good or bad, I mean, this is kind of a hard thing to say. It's just what it is. But yeah, we don't want a big magnitude earthquake, let's say, like right under Tokyo or something like that. Like, it's not going to be good. Even worse if it's like a third world country. That's when you really get a lot of devastation and death, unfortunately. We have truth-seeking Veronica. She's saying anything showing up with the fault lines in the States, we can go there. We can go to our USGS map here. And we have this set for 7 days. I'll turn on to magnitude 2.5 and greater, and we'll go over to the United States. But no, nothing really significant in the US as far as I know yet. Yeah, and nothing really of note here. We do only list earthquakes shown on the map. Oh, I need to click it over here. And then we can do largest magnitude, and we get a magnitude 5 here, southwest of Puerto Rico, or yeah, southeast of Puerto Rico. Then we have a 4.9 with Panama, or I need to click here. 4.9 with Panama, but if we zoom in even more to the United States, let's do this. So we exclude some of those more active seismic areas, and we only have a 3.8 as the strongest. So nothing really happening in the United States. I guess maybe we just had a 1.6 solar flare. Let's give that a look, see if that's the case. Yep, we are in a flare right now, folks. 1.6 M-class flare happening as we speak. Thank you, Niels, for bringing that up. Here we see that spike right there coming in. Here is our latest solar flare from the sun. This is a very active region. This is the one that's been doing all the M-class flares. So we had just north of it, this was that 1.1 X-class flare, but this is where we've been having most of the activity. In fact, this sunspot group has been looking the craziest on the sun, I would say. So that's the 1.6 flare right now, and let's go down to our sunspots to check it out. We can look at our latest intensitygram of the sun right here. And that's starting to look pretty gnarly, folks. That's definitely been growing. It's looking pretty wild, especially like this curl right there. If it was just this, then it's like, okay, you know, we've seen those. But now when you zoom out and you see that additional like flux curl right there, wow, that's definitely becoming something pretty quickly. We're gonna have to keep an eye on that. This guy looks about the same. Let's get the names for those. I don't know the names of them yet. I haven't been looking at sunspots too much recently, just because there's always something new to do. Other stuff to check out. But we can look at our synoptic map here. This is 446 and 448. 446 and 448. So that is what we got. We have sunspot group 446, sunspot group 48. A lot of fours. So yeah, we're going to really have to keep a close eye on this. That will be Earth Center direct in about 6.5 days. Yeah, about maybe even 7 days. It's going to be in this zone in 6 days. It's going to be about here or even a little bit further in 6 days. And this is the geoeffective zone right here. The way the solar wind spirals out is that you don't really get geoeffective position until about here, typically. But it's extended a little bit further on the more western side of the sun. And Simone is asking, would you recommend to expose yourself to the sun to receive downloads and also step back from it when it's too intense? That's up to you. You know, I think that it's good to get sunlight on your skin every single day, and I wouldn't be afraid of the sun, but don't spend 12 hours out in the sun unless you have a lot of melatonin in your skin, basically. And you're not going to get sunburned. I just go by, am I going to get sunburned or not? But I wouldn't worry about like, you know, solar flares. all that radiation from a solar flare gets absorbed into the ionosphere. It doesn't reach the surface. So you don't have to worry about the sun in terms of like, oh, there was a big X-class flare or something, now my skin's going to burn. That energy is getting absorbed into the plasma of the ionosphere. So there's nothing to worry about there. And a question from Anada is our solar system a binary system? So do we have a binary star? Very quickly, I think there's a lot of, I think it's very possible. We could have an ultra-wide binary star companion, and it could be a red dwarf, which are difficult to find once they go out a certain distance. We see Barnard stars zooming in really close to our solar system really quickly. So it's possible. I talk about that extensively in my Planetary Resonances e-course. So if you would like to learn more, you can sign up for that. And there's an entire section on precession and binary star theory and more. I go even more in depth too in terms of my own thoughts. I don't think it's necessarily a binary star. I think we just have random stars kind of swing by at times that create a little bit of like a pseudo-binary system. But it's possible. It's possible. It could be what explains the weird orbits of the trans-Newtonian objects and not Planet X. You could have a binary companion that explains that. But it'd be an ultra-wide binary companion. It'd be like a red dwarf. So, it doesn't show up that easily. If it was a big star, we would know. If it was a big star, we would know. Max is asking, what would happen if that blast was Earth-facing? What would happen if this blast was Earth-facing? Well, that would trigger a geomagnetic superstorm. Almost certainly a G5 geomagnetic storm. The velocity on this was insane. The density on it is what makes that very special though. Like, it's a very high velocity blast, but there have been other coronal mass ejections that have been faster. But it's the density on that was really, really remarkable because it exploded under a plasma filament. So it really just ramped everything up to 10. And in this hypothetical, what would happen if that blast is Earth-facing? Well, for that to be Earth-facing, it would have had to explode from there. It would have been much closer to this coronal hole. The high-speed stream really dropped the plasma density of the solar wind super anomalously low. So effectively, we had this big void of the solar wind, and you're going to have less plasma interactions, and so you can have a coronal mass ejection sweep faster through the interplanetary medium to reach Earth. This would not have been slowed down all that much before it reached Earth. Whereas if you have normal plasma density of the solar wind, it's going to kind of have to resist against that, right? Imagine the air is thicker and you're running. It's going to be harder, or the wind's blowing against you. Well, when there's no wind, you can fly really quickly. That's what would have happened if this had blasted off from, like, let's say this zone here, right next and following behind that coronal hole. It would have been epic. It would have been really, really significant. And people are calling, so many people call me a fearmonger about this, and that I'm like trying to make people afraid. But it's funny because I'm saying, like, we don't want these impacts. And anyone that watches the channel knows I'm like, thankfully that missed us. Meanwhile, you go on Twitter to the space weather community, and all the people there are like, oh man, I can't wait till the next like massive coronal mass ejection hits us so we can get some aurora photos. Like, those are the people that want the solar flares to like smack into the Earth. So, redirect your attention. Some of the people that are maybe watching this are like, oh, I'm just a fearmonger. Like, those are people, again, that want these flares to hit us. I don't want these things to hit us because it causes a lot of health and wellness effects. And I don't necessarily don't want them. I think there's unique energetic factors at play, but I'm not going to like pray that we have a super flare hit us. That's not my agenda. I just educate and inform on these things. What is happening, that is what I talk about. That's what happened, so I'm going to make a video on that. Let me catch all the way up on the comments and see what's come in because I don't want to get something too late. There's been a whole bunch. Andrea saying they don't want us to know anything. And Stefan is perfect in spirit and doing the best he can, just like all of us. Yeah, that's basically, we're all this human, right? And so just doing my best to just see what's happening. I have a special skill set, and I just share that with everybody. Now, we just had an incredible super thanks come in from a repeat super thanker. Peppermint Patty is one of the all-stars on this channel, dropping Massive super thanks. Thank you so much, Peppermint Patty. She says, thank you, Stefan, for all you do. This has been fascinating to watch and learn. Well, thank you so much, Patty. And there is no team. It's just me right now. There will be a team eventually, but there's no team at this moment in time. And just FYI, super thanks. YouTube will take 30% of that. And so if you want to donate directly, you can go to my YouTube channel and there's a link there for my PayPal, and 100% of that goes to me versus YouTube taking 30% when maybe they don't necessarily need 30% of your donation. So just in general, you know, I'm not really one to ask for donations, but if you would like to donate, you can do that with the PayPal link. So incredible. Thank you so much, Patty. That's insane. You know, you're one of the best. You're a real one. Just another Patty says, now that I've seen the aurora, I'm obsessed with seeing more. So maybe that's what it is. It's like an addiction or something. But there's real health effects from these sort of space weather impacts. You know, it can cause a lot of different things. For some people, it's pain and inflammation, and they can't sleep, and fatigue, and energy volatility, and upset digestion, and things, heart arrhythmias and stuff of this nature. If you are in a good spot and you are doing earthing and grounding and you're drinking the herbal tea blends, things of this nature, right? Then this can be like an enhancement of energy and even strength and creativity. So yeah, it's like a kind of a bimodal distribution. But I don't wish suffering on anybody. I just educate on how you can get over to that side where these energies work with you very nicely. Because I personally have pretty good experiences with solar activity. Not every time. Sometimes it, you know, it's a little bit of a shock to the system. But in general, I find myself having enhancement of creative energy and flow, more dreams. I'm stronger in the gym, things of that nature. So it's just what it is, right? Good, bad, whatever. It's just what it is. That's the end of the day. Yeah, and there's a new scientific article regarding geomagnetic activity waking up the DNA for latent viruses in our body. That goes all the way back to Luc Montagnier with his the Nobel Prize winner who discovered the HIV virus. And there's also a little bit of like, do viruses exist? Either way, what we're looking at the body is just the body is electromagnetic, and it runs off of really, like DNA operates based on the electric field that's connected to. It's superconductive. It's an antenna. It's a fractal antenna. It connects to all the different wavelengths of light. And we see that there's like this interchange with our body in like an infection or something where it's really our immune system which is saying, okay, are you an invader? Are you good for us? Or are you bad for us? If you're bad, we're going to gobble you up. But if the immune system gets suppressed, then you can have, let's say, more viral interchanges with DNA. Most of the DNA in the body is not human. It's actually bacterial and it's viral. And so this is a way for your body to get kind of upgrades, you could say, to its DNA, or downgrades. I mean, you know, a virus can kill you. But our DNA is not completely immutable. It's not completely static. It is constantly in flux as well, not only through mutations that originate within us, but also through the influence of bacteria and DNA and viruses. So yeah, bacteria and viruses really seem to have a connection to geomagnetic energies, and specifically the first mode of the Schumann resonance at 7 to 8 hertz. We see that that influences viral DNA recombination and a whole bunch of things. So it's fascinating. I should talk about it more. I've talked about it a lot, but I should talk about it more. And GS Lawrence is saying, thank you for your perspective. I'm so grateful you bring to your videos. You're a true crystal child and keep putting out all the codes. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And here's a question from Daniel saying, how much energy can the ionosphere and beyond realistically hold? Is there a threshold point where something happens, perhaps a lightning aura seen maybe in space, maybe pyramids begin to resonate? Yeah, so I think you're kind of touching on something. Let me find this. Let me see if I can find this graphic. It's like, I'll have to type in like Mars electric universe, like discharge or something like that. Because there are some people that think that there's like these massive discharges that occur to form some of these geologic structures. Here's an image I can show you. Look at this one. This is crazy. There's people that, you know, I haven't really talked about this before. I'm not saying I believe this. But there are people that think that like the radiation belts, for example, can store up enough energy, and when they get to a certain point, they actually, like a capacitor discharger, all their energy down, and that's actually what created these geologic features we see. Some people also think this is what occurred, and that's what created the Grand Canyon. Now, if that's the case, you would see like melting glass and everything in those areas. So I don't think this is the case. I don't think we have evidence of that. But it's an interesting idea. We do know that the radiation belts, the ionosphere, they hold a tremendous amount of energy. But in terms of being able to go like this, no, I don't think that's the case. But some people do. Yeah, BJ Bumblebee is saying no melting glass around the Grand Canyon. Yeah, so some of these things, we see lightning strikes on a beach. They will create, let's pull it up. Lightning strikes on a beach will create glass. So here's like lightning glass right there. Look at that one. How wicked is that? And so we see that happening with a lightning strike. Well, if we go back perhaps to our to this guy, that's a much bigger lightning strike. So we're going to see fulgurite everywhere, and just in general, that sort of glass. So yeah, I don't think that's the case, but there are people that argue that, and it's interesting. You know, I've watched some videos how they explain it, and they do their best with the hypothesis, and I think it's worth exploring, keeping an open mind. Do I believe it at this moment in time? No, but I reserve the right to change my mind with future evidence coming out. This would be a plasma discharge from hell. Yeah, we wouldn't want that. Well, some people do kind of want the world to end. I was talking about this with a podcast I'm going to release soon. You know, I think the reason why some people are so set on like wanting the world to end or things of this nature is that it is a way to absolve themselves of their own personal spiritual evolution journey that they need to do. The shame, the guilt, the things that they've done, or the things that they're not doing to make the world a better place, right? It's just a low consciousness mindset. If you're not willing to step up and actually do what you think needs to be done, not only for yourself to be healthy, well, to live in harmony with others, to be a good person, to cultivate greater consciousness, but also to make the world a better place, to ripple out that positive energy to everyone, right? Love, peace, harmony, and beyond. If that's too much work for you because you are just in this depressed state because there's so much repressed anger, then you're just going to be like, yeah, you know, let's just have the world end and we just get a clean slate and let's go. And we do know that cataclysms occur. How often they occur, there's no real set frequency to them based on my research that I've done. There's no disaster cycle that I know of based on my research. A lot of that data is like manipulated and just a story that's been made, a story that's been spun. But regardless, I think that's why so many people are attracted to the idea of like, you know, the end of the world, because it absolves them of personal responsibility for treating others nicely, for being a good human being, a good Samaritan, and beyond. So just my thoughts. You know, this channel is just a place for me to share my thoughts, and people seem to like it. And some people also don't like it, but you know, I don't really, whichever way it is, I don't really care. Nanda is saying, if you want to see auroras, get lots of Stefan's teas and move up north. Yeah, spirituality. If you've been having problems sleeping and more for the past few days because of the heightened energies, then spirituality and tranquility are the tea blends to get. Available for everyone in the United States at wildfreeorganic.com. This is purple lotus flower, chamomile, passion flower, and mugwort. All those amazing for helping you rest, relax, and get some sleep. Also enhance your dreams. Just good for like meditation and sound healing and yoga as well. And then tranquility, also really good for rest and relaxation. Your parasympathetic nervous system, also really good for digestion. It's dandelion root, chamomile, lemongrass, calendula, and lavender flower. So this is also really great, but it may not enhance your dreams significantly in a way that spirituality does. So if you don't want the dreams enhancement so much, then get the tranquility. Both those on wildfreeorganic.com. And also earthing and grounding is excellent for helping stabilize your system and in general just be a little bit more rested, relaxed. I recommend you do that today as after all these crazy energies that we've had. Thank you, Marianda, for the super thanks. That's awesome. And I think we're going to wrap up the live stream today. So thank you all so much for joining in today and for just being part of the live stream. I hope that you're all feeling well. Magnitude 7 earthquake in Tonga, right next to the submarine volcano there that erupted in 2022. So we'll see if that starts to get activated. Right now we've been having lots of solar activity and lots of earthquakes, but we haven't been having volcanic eruptions so much. That was a little bit earlier in March. But April is a big question mark. It's a really big question mark. We have a lot happening in April, but it's also still very much like March was a little bit clearer in terms of how it's going to express itself because we had the planetary geometry, we had the eclipses, we had the equinox. These are kind of a little bit more known factors. Now it's a brave new world. I don't know where things are going after this, but if my dream isn't any indication, we have more earthquakes and we have some crazy solar activity. If that dream that I had December 6, 2024 is any indication. So we'll see. I hope you found that broadcast valuable. If you did, smash that like button. Again, I've been your host, Stefan Burns. And so subscribe to the channel to stay up to date. I release videos almost daily. And we talk about what's happening not only energetically here on Earth, but also the solar system, the cosmos, how all that combines together, influences our quantum reality matrix, you could say. So yeah, we have a lot of fun on this channel. Love to see you around, and thank you to everyone who has supported the channel, not only today in this live stream, but across time. And amazing that we've passed 200,000 subscribers. And even now, I think today we'll pass 210,000 subscribers. So we've been putting on like 5,000 subs a day just over the past few days. So yeah, March, someone said March is the calm before the storm. March Madness, was March the storm or was March just the calm before the storm? That is a good question. So anyways, love and light. See you all soon and take care of yourselves.